and now we are proceeding to final session, which is going to be a panel. This panel closes the day with a power. These experts shape narratives, manage crises, and drive deals. Generally, it doesn't happen without them, and today they are telling you, how it's done. Our topic is how agents, communicator, and industry experts shape the winter transfer flow. Please welcome our great panelists. First of all, Georgi Gradev. Give one applause for him, please. The next one, Andre Martek. One applause for Andre, please. And Nenad Monev. Nenad, take your seat, please. One applause for him. My colleague moderator is going to be Didam Dilman, and one applause for our moderator, please. Enjoy the panel. Thank you.
Hi. Hi. Hey. Okay, I know everybody's full of very, very good information, and we are a little bit tired, but of course, this is something like winter transfer is, right? Little time, so many information, so many players, and you have to figure out in a very, very tight time. So I would like to first, nice to meet you. And Andrew is a very good friend of mine, of course. But I am, first of all, glad to meet you to Gradev and Nenad Monev, and of course, my dear friend Andre Martek.
Hi, Dida.
So let's start with
It's not here. It's not here.
Rade. Okay. So
He's on social media.
Georgi Gradev.
We can get him on social media.
On the television already.
Yeah,
in some
okay.
interviews.
Georgi
He's on
Gradev.
television, right?
Must be giving
Georgi Gradev.
Georgi.
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 Yes.
It's a Bulgarian name.
Yes, so we are neighbors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
You're
are.
from Bulgaria, I'm from Istanbul. So there is a train from Istanbul to
The
Tokyo.
correct word is komşu.
Yes, komşu.
Komşu is the correct word. Yeah.
Komşu. Yes, we are komşu.
And also the other one is arkadaş. This means friends.
Yes.
Arkadaşlar.
You know Turkish better than me.
Yeah, I used to play in Turkey.
Yeah, definitely. So of course, as a sports lawyer, as a former player, and
You know, I was not a player. I was a goalkeeper. That's a huge difference.
okay.
You see, they're already laughing because they know what I'm talking about.
It gets very, 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 very interesting. Are you one of these guys who are putting one for the goalkeeper in the formation?
Am I playing today? That's what you mean?
Yes.
No, I'm not.
No.
Unfortunately, I have to drive back to home. So let's get to the topic because I'm pretty sure there are a lot of agents here, and I see some of the best sports lawyers in the world, like Renaud at the back. Renaud, stop working. Listen to what we're saying, because I think although this topic is one very interesting one, you put it after lunch and the last one to make it difficult for everyone to follow what we are going to say. But I think that's the most important panel on the whole meeting, because we have here one of the most experienced club representatives, as Nenad, who is also on the European football clubs.
And I have very, very tough questions for him.
Yeah, so I'm working as a sports lawyer and agent. I'm also a licensed agent.
Yes.
I don't know you yet, but I'm pretty sure
he's a great
very
scout.
good match because he's a former goalkeeper as well.
Yes.
So it will be a very good match. So let's kick off. I'm pretty sure we can say something.
My first question is going to be for you. What is the most common legal mistake for clubs and agencies make in January transfers?
Well, guys, first of all, you need to agree with me that January is not like summer. Summer clubs make long-term strategy, and we heard the previous presentations this afternoon. Everyone from the club side were talking about long-term strategies. How, like the Fortuna Sittard president was telling us how they do this. Tom, just a moment ago, was talking about long-term strategies. But you all know, as experienced agents, most of your agents here, that the January transfer period is about short-term solutions. Most of the clubs, they just look for a short-term solution to fill a gap in their rosters. So that's a risk. That's higher risk because they don't have the time to look into the players. We heard the CEO of a Belgian club earlier today. He was telling us how a club recruiting a player must know everything about the player, not only about his football skills, but about his personality, his family situation, etc., his interests. This is not possible within a short term of 4 weeks where the winter transfer period is open. That's the first. So this is a challenge for clubs and for agents in the same time, because to be honest, agents are looking mostly for profit, most of them. And sometimes they don't say no to a deal they understand it's not going to be valuable or profitable for their clients. They're just looking for a bigger profit for themselves. And that's wrong in long term, because if the client is not satisfied with the agent's solution, then they're going to lose the deal. They're going to lose the client in the long term. In January, agents are not only facilitators, they're not intermediaries. They are more like risk managers and strategic advisors. Clubs are looking for short-term deals, but then players are looking for preservations. They want to have a certain deal that will stand the time. So successful are those agents, not who make the deal faster, but those who make their deal stay under scrutiny for a longer period. So this requires, again, another very interesting issue about the January transfer period is that the documentation is thinner. You have less evidence. Agents are in rush of making communication with players over WhatsApp or other communication channels instead of signing mandates or representation agreements. So the documentation is thinner, and it's harder for agents to prove their causal involvement in deals and to secure payment later on. They don't pay too much attention to the paperwork, rather to the quick profit. That's a huge problem for them. So definitely the January transfer period is nothing like the summer transfer period in Europe.
So, Nenad, from that point, why the winter transfer window more difficult than summer in the club perspective?
I want to add something to the Georgi. Says that the winter transfer window is to clean up the mistakes that we made it in the summer transfer window. And looking from the aspect that I am the general secretary of the club and I am involved in the transfers and everything, but again, I'm supporting the strategy of the sports side of the club, but I am without interfering in this. But it's always risky that looking from different angles, it's difficult to find. The risk is bigger and maybe will cost you more that to bring some quality players or somehow to adjust the things that you make it in the summer. And it's always when I speak with the owners of the club, let's speak about Rabotnički, I always says that now in the winter transfer window you will play double, but the risk will be almost double. That maybe you will miss the players and everything because we exactly know. And this is why my suggestion is always, I'm not the sport director again, let's clear the things, but I'm suggesting find some good players who are playing in the overlapping season in the countries where already finished, maybe someone with clear contracts, with finished contracts, and somehow to make adjustment to the club.
That's a good point, by the way. This makes the agent more than the regular intermediary. It's making him a regulatory advisor. He's the one to tell the player, look, you can play in more than 2 clubs in the same season. And this brings me to the example of Livakovic, the Croatian goalkeeper, who now probably got a strategic advice from his agents. So when they tried to fill him in Girona, where he's on loan now in Spain, you know, all of you know Livakovic, the goalkeeper, right? He's in Girona in Spain, you know that. And they tried to fill him in a cup match, and he refused to play because he wants out of the club in the winter transfer break. And he already had 1 match for Fenerbahce earlier this season. So playing for Girona would close the door for him in many markets. He would have opened for him only going back to Fenerbahce or switching for a club which has a reverse season, like calendar year, following calendar year.
Overlapping.
The overlapping season, yeah, exactly. So what you're saying is exactly the risk of the January transfer period.
Look, from my aspect as a general secretary, let's say that the winter transfer window is about, I don't know, about the governance, about compliance, and about credibility and some operational controls. I found out these 2 days more than 5 agents that I refused the players to register for Robotnički because of any reasons. So I am happy for that. So just staying on the other side and protecting the club with all, because it's normal that the agents will offer everything to our sport department, and it's up to us, up to me in this situation in the club to decide if he is eligible for play. Even that Georgi says about the rule of FIFA for no more than 3 clubs playing, and all these rules that are in according to the governance and according to the compliance with all these regulatives on the domestic level and international level with FIFA and UEFA.
So,
As a smart
So-
leader, you're always calling me when you have this kind of questions.
Yes.
Andre,
Please.
people think that generally January transfer starts in January, but as a very experienced international scout, first team scout, and all these scouting things, we know that January transfer doesn't start in January. It's a hard work for a scout. But what is the difference between summer and the winter transfer windows?
First of all, thank you, Didem, for your question. I would concur to many of your points you have mentioned, and that is a difference between January and the summer,
Yeah, because you played as a goalkeeper like me. That's why you concur.
but not with all your points, to be fair. I think it's still relevant to follow your ideas of style of play, the profile you have mentioned and described before. So I don't see that a club should not follow his philosophy in the winter when he's in emergency situation, because I see so many transfers who didn't work out because we did something because of rush, because of pressure from outside. My personal opinion is that in the winter there are still opportunities. For example, we saw today the example of Erling Haaland. Erling Haaland came to Salzburg in the winter, but didn't play much in the second part of the season. So he was a transfer who the idea was that he will hopefully strengthen the team in the summer, but already came in the winter to the team to integrate the first half season, then be ready to play. Or for sure, it's relevant to react on an injury situation. But again, I would like to mention that you shouldn't eliminate your philosophy and forget your philosophy in winter to just do a deal to have done a deal. It's always relevant to follow your ideas, your strategy, and your philosophy. Don't be rushed by outside reasons, by outside pressure, because so many transfers will fail because the player is not fitting to your style, and then it's a bigger problem.
But how about pressure from fans? Do you get sometimes pressure, clubs? Nenad, do you get pressure from fans? Like you have a striker who's not playing well. He's not scoring enough. And the fans, they feel that you have to make a change. But then you do what he says. You don't rush into the new transfer. What is your strategy from the perspective of scout? Or I took your job, I'm sorry. But that's me. They know me. Most of them know me. So yeah,
Yeah, you know what? I'm cool for it. Cool.
So-
I'm pretty sure.
I have just a perspective of scouting and recruitment, and a big part of my job is to say no in the right moment from a sportive perspective. I know general managers, CEOs have a different point of view. But from the sporting advisory, I can or I have to say no when I'm not convinced. So for sure, the result and the conclusion can be different. But if you ask a scouting department, is this player fitting to the profile we have? Is the player helping us in this quality terms? I have to say no in the right moment. I think this is the main job.
But how about from the context? Tom correctly said context is everything. Even there is such a saying that in law, context is everything. So it seems in football, context is everything. How about in the context of pressure from fans? What do you tell the fans? Are you telling them the real reason why they're not getting this player because you don't want to rush into a risky solution? Or maybe you found that he's injured, or maybe he's an African player with a fake passport. We had this kind of issues in the past sometimes from lawyer perspective. So what do you tell the fans if the deal fails?
Do you prefer a transfer, expensive transfer, who
It's not
probably...
about what we prefer. What do you tell the fans?
Yeah, this is the question I would take to the fans, back to the fans. Do you prefer an expensive transfer who probably not fit in our team, or do we want to save the money to wait for the right solution?
I choose for the first one as
They
a
want
fan,
quick results.
you know?
My answer is quick results. What are you saying?
Quick results is not the right result. I personally would wait for the right moment, because if I bring in a player who's not fitting to our idea, not fitting to our identity, not fitting to the culture of club we have, he probably won't work out. And then we are spending so much money on a player who's not helping us. So I would wait, and hopefully the right moment will occur. But if not, okay, we didn't spend money and throw money outside of the window. I wouldn't... If you're searching for a car and somebody opens the opportunity for you to buy a bicycle, will you buy it because you don't have anything, or will you wait to get a car?
Nenad, again, I'm in your role, but that's really interesting for me. So I'm also speaker, but then I participate like you guys, and I also have questions to them. So I'm using my position to ask. Earlier on, the Fortuna Sittard president said something very clever. I've read this some years in the past when a lot of English fans were trying to get involved into managing a club, that the most important thing for a club is to survive, not to go bankrupt. So what is your take on this question about rushing a transfer or refusing a transfer because it's too much rushed?
Yeah, look, the difficulties that you got for working, we already speak before on the lunch, like let's say FIFA clearinghouse payments and all these things which give you the financial sustainability of the club. It's always, the biggest issue, especially in the small clubs, it's this conflict between the sporting aspect of the club and organizational aspect, and let's say we who make the budget and everything, because the sporting aspect, and let's say the sporting director is always asking for more, and you're the other one who always say, we don't have enough, we are waiting this income. And this is some kind of conflict that you should manage. And when you make it, but continuously on the previous set, that I think that there is no the right thing in the football, because always the results at the end will tell us did we do the right thing or not. But my opinion, the 70% should be of the strategy should be in advance, let's say, accepted by the management of the club or even in the sporting aspect. But remaining 30%, you always rely on the conditions that you are. For example, let's say in our country, we got very late closing of the transfer window. We are finishing about 11 of February. And from the 1st of February, you got 11 more days. And this 30% regarding maybe there will be some good Macedonian international without a club that you can attract him to come to the league and help you. But it is just only the 30% that you can, let's say, rely on it and you can make it. But how it says, they say, like, let's say the sporting aspect of the club says, like, if it's come, it's good. If it doesn't come, I am prepared to do it without it, So
Okay, let's put the agents into the topic. So you have an agent who comes to you 5 days before the end of the winter transfer period. We know that's 4 weeks, so it's shorter. How do you manage to do the due diligence part? Like he comes to you and says, there is no training compensation due. Obviously, you can't take it for granted. You need to do the due diligence. Then you have just 5 days pressuring you. Yeah. Maybe you'll be in the shoes of Real Madrid, who were like 48 seconds late to register De Gea. How do you cope with that?
No, I mean, I'm not in the shoes in Real Madrid because I don't have their money. So the risk about paying
you have
yearly
better
compensation will
administration.
take me a lot of money.
You have better administration than Real Madrid because you never had this problem to miss
Yeah, but-
to register the here for 48 seconds, right?
You know, the pressure is very big, especially from the moment I want to point it out from my aspect as I say on the beginning. The coach is coming, the sporting director is coming. We must sign this player. We must sign this player. Nobody else. Does we have the right documents? Does we have the real ones? These documents are coming for a reliable resource, which is very important. You know better than me, and all these things. And you should decide if you sign this player or not. I have one occasion, for example, in the summer transfer window for one guy not signing for Robotnički, but after 2 weeks going to another club. They point to me like, I don't know, 3 months, why he cannot be signed here, why you give me wrong information, blah, blah. After that, we find out that he is wrong registered, in this situation. Sometimes this situation are happening and the pressure is very big to us, especially as you say, very correct, that how these things day by day are going to the countdown of the deadline of the transfer window closing. For example, if you got on the site like, I don't know, 10 players, immediately and become 100 players. I don't know from where. Maybe the agents is the last chance for the agents to sell the players to profit from something, or I don't know how it. But magically, the last day of the transfer window, especially on my desk, there are 100 players that I should check, for example, and previously were only 10. You can imagine how to manage these kind of things. You are the wrong guy in the agents and and the sporting director is always say, I don't know, I want to take it, but Nenad doesn't allow me to take it, somehow protecting in front of my face. This is, I find out 5 managers here, agents who I refuse the players I saw before.
What do you think about this, Andre?
Yeah, I think you can also prepare yourself on those situations. You can think about this process before. You told me it happens all the time that agent offers players last minute, and I think you can set a process before. Okay, what will happen if an agent propose a player who could be interesting to us? So we do the due diligence in sporting terms. We do the due diligence in personal terms. So we can have something like a trial before, but to think about, okay, what are we going to do if this situation occurs? So I think you can even prepare such emergency cases before to be structured, to have a clear plan what you're doing in this moment.
But also, as I mentioned at the beginning, a transfer window doesn't open with the transfer window, and as Nenad said, this is some kind of taking the tailor for your summer mistakes, but also it is always bringing you the new targets that you haven't thought in summer. For example, you are going very bad, or you are reached the UEFA in the after groups, or you have something else different. So everything is changing so many with so many information. So Georgi, how can you avoid how the clubs and agents avoid to make wrong decisions in this dynamic and chaotic perspective? What do you tell them to do? How to avoid mistakes?
First of all, guys, I'll start from what he said last, which is very correct. You should have planning outside of the registration period. And what you said is also correct, that the registration period is only a period for registering players. So I'm pretty sure that most of you know, but I'm definitely sure that some of you don't know, that you can sign a contract, be it employment contract with the player or a transfer agreement between two clubs at any moment of time during the 365 days in a year, sometimes 366. The problem is the registration. The registration can be done only during the registration periods. So if you're looking for filling a gap in your team, first of all, outside of the registration period, you can still register free players, those who are out of contract. You can still register players who terminated in the meantime with just cause. You can register players who were terminated by clubs with or without just cause. So those players are on the market full time, 365 days in the year. So you can register those players even before the registration period opens. If you don't find those kind of players, free players, then you obviously move within the registration period, looking also for other solutions, sometimes paying huge transfer fees, sometimes lower transfer fees. But I just plead that you open your spectrum and you look also through agents for solutions that are coming to you as free players outside the registration period. Then moving to the registration period and to the time constraints which it brings with it, I strongly advise you to work with lawyers, and mainly sports lawyers, people like me who know the sports law environment, regulations, particularly training compensation. We have seen so many mistakes with young players up to 23 years of age where the club is not aware that training compensation is due. Normally, that's part of the due diligence process that clubs should carry on, but then they blame agents. So nowadays, agents must be very much aware of what training compensation is, whether there is a valid waiver of training compensation or not, when exactly training compensation is triggered and to whom it's due. That's also part of agents' duties, and it's part of the agent exam at FIFA right now. So agents must be prepared. So my recommendation to all of you guys is what we do with Nenad here. When there is an issue and needs urgent response, he's calling me. I'm doing the diligence for them or giving them advice how to solve a difficult situation. Sometimes we get clubs from the other side which are not responsive. You're sending them an email to clarify the player's situation, and they're not responding. So we have a legal solution for that. Normally, what I'm doing is that in the letter which I'm sending, I'm giving them a deadline, and I'm saying that if you do not respond within the deadline, which is normally 24 hours, we will consider that you admit the fact that whatever the fact is. So basically, this is a good faith example how it is taking the club out of trouble.
One of the biggest issue, even for the agents, is what we mentioned before, is the 3 clubs in one season, especially in the winter, because we are playing in Europe. Only some Scandinavic countries who are like overlapping season, and you can use the players if they play for any of these clubs. I always conflict between me, for my experience, I spoke now. My conflict with the agents when I communicate with them, it's regarding does this player is eligible for play or not.
Can I give a practical example of what you're saying? There was a famous case for one famous player who was in Newcastle and Newcastle United in the UK, and he moved to France in Nice. So it appeared that this player has played first for one club, then he played a match for the B team of Newcastle, and then he moved to Nice on loan in the winter. And actually, he got registered, but he was rendered ineligible to play because it was his third registration within the season. And if he had played for Nice, it would be his third club. And their FIFA and CAS both said that playing for the B team of Newcastle is an official appearance in matches. Keep that in mind. That's a bit strange because I had the landmark decision in 2007 on Sporting Just Cause, where CAS said the opposite. They said that playing for the B team is not calculated as official matches. But now with this player, it was a famous player, I just don't recall the name. Maybe you can recall it, Jakub. Ben Arfa. Ben Arfa, yes. So they didn't let him play. There was such a case also many years ago in Greece with Olympiacos. So that's another issue which you have to look at. Then we had another issue I want to share with you, and it was in Turkey. I was like working as an in-house lawyer for one of the biggest clubs there, and usually what we do in the clubs, and you know those who come from clubs, is that the club that is buying the player is the one drafting the transfer agreement. That's the one who proposes the agreement because that's the one who pays the money. So they want to be secure that they are not going to have to pay more than they actually promised to pay. So that's the usual way. And me as an in-house lawyer, I'm drafting the contract. But then there is a French club selling a French player to us, one of the renowned academy clubs in France. I'm not going to mention the name. And they're giving us their template. At first, that was nothing suspicious. That's like they just want to put their template. All right. So we decided, because it was a January transfer period again, it was time constraints pressing us. I said, okay, I'm going to do just little changes and we will accept their template. But then they came back to us and said, no. You have to accept our template without any modifications. And that actually raised a red flag for us that something is wrong. Why would that club put their contract with no amendments and pushing us and time is pressing us? So we thought, because of the African origin of the player, and you all know that there are plenty of African players with fake birth dates, that they are faking the birth date of the player. That's what we were assuming. So we submitted the player to blood test, to DNA test to establish his age. And the laborant was probably too diligent to tick every tick possible on the list of testing, and the guy came out HIV positive. So this was again a rush transfer where they were pushing us, the time was pressing us, and this was a good example that we were diligent and didn't we would stand the pressure. That what you said, that's better to think twice and pay once instead of being paying badly twice. So yeah, so it's just
Georgi,
practical examples. And I'd like to mention just one more thing, which for me is very important for agents. Guys, nowadays you work a lot without paperwork. That's a very big mistake. Don't do it anymore. I know FIFA has regulations. They push you to sign representation contracts, but then you have no protection from FIFA whatsoever because the agent chamber is not working. So I'm not saying you should do exactly what FIFA says because FIFA is not giving you any guarantees of protection. I'm saying that at least a simple mandate should be signed, put in place before you start representing the player. So don't call Tom, offer him a player before you sign him. What you said, Tom, about collecting data is very much relevant. There are so many hunters of data. They know every player on the market, but they don't even have a contact with them. And they're submitting to Tom as a scout, chief scout in a club, saying, see, these players. And if Tom makes the mistake to say, yeah, I'm interested in this one, that's when they start calling, trying to get a mandate, and that's a huge mess. So as an agent, if you want to be professional and successful, and that most of all, you get paid by your clients, because that's the huge problem. You don't get paid at the end. You do your job and you don't get paid. Please first go and sign a mandate. And please call people like me and Renaud Duchesne there in the middle from Belgium, which are sports lawyers, to draft your mandate. Most likely, I'm not going even to charge you, most likely. Or if it's a very complicated representation agreement, maybe I'll get you 500 or 1,000 euro, whatever. But then you will make thousands of euros. Trust me on that, and you will be guaranteed. But make it everything, make a paper trail for yourselves, okay? First of all, sign a mandate. The mandate must be clear. First of all, get a waiver of causation. What does it mean? Your work generally as agents is equalized to brokers. You're like brokers on real estate. You need to prove that your work was decisive to earn your money. Nobody's going to pay you just because you have a written mandate. So if you want to avoid that, and that the player goes and represents himself alone without you, or uses a third-party agent in breach of your exclusivity, you first of all have to sign a waiver of causation saying that notwithstanding my involvement in bringing about or negotiating a deal, you will pay me anyway. That's the first. The second thing, which will protect you from let's say illegal interactions with third parties. If you have an exclusive mandate with a player and there is an agent who is a third party doing the transfer for the player, the only way you can protect yourself against such illicit practices is if you have a penalty clause in your mandate. Because if you don't have the penalty clause in your mandate and the player is in breach of the exclusivity clause by working with another agent, you end up in court and you cannot prove your real damages, because the damage requires a direct link between the work and the result. And if you're working to transfer the player to Fenerbahce in Istanbul, but then he, as an agent, brings the player to Real Madrid, you are not actually working to bring the player to Real Madrid, so you cannot prove any direct damage. Penalty, so waiver of causation, penalty, and the third most important thing in a written mandate is the arbitration clause. Nowadays, we have only CAS. FIFA is not working, so we have only the Court of Arbitration for Sport. So I'd strongly advise that you put an exclusive arbitration clause in favor of CAS. Plus, plus Swiss law to apply, because most sports lawyers are aware of it. And I'm going to tell you in practical terms what happens next. So you have this well-written mandate. It could be one page, by the way. It doesn't need to be very difficult, because players, they don't want to sign complex documents. What is happening in practical terms with my clients' agents when they come to me with a well-written mandate and their client has not paid their fees? The first thing is, when I send an email, in 2 hours, 80% of the players are paying in 2 hours, not 2 days. They get so scared, they get cold feet, they're paying immediately when they see lawyers involved, particularly big law firms. Second option, they don't want to pay after the warning. We're filing with CAS. CAS is expensive, but in order to file, you need to pay only 1,000 Swiss francs. By paying that, you're getting a very nice and very, very scary letter for players from CAS saying in 3 pages the full procedure and what is going to happen. That's the moment where 95% of the clubs and players get scared, cold feet, and they immediately come to you for a settlement. Particularly if you file an exaggerated claim and you actually ask for 10% of it to settle, they're so happy that they made a deal with you that everything ends immediately. It's less than 5% of the cases that they move to a final decision. So agents are well protected if first have a written mandate, and second, paper trail that shows that your work was decisive, was causal for the deal you're negotiating. That's my take for you guys.
Please add Georgi Gradev from LinkedIn. And these are very, very precious information that nobody would share with young agencies. That I have lots of young agency clients, and thanks a lot for all these.
I have a lot of followers from Turkey, by the way, students.
Yes, but you are going to visit us in Istanbul, right? I know that.
I have an office in Istanbul, so yeah.
Yes. So, Andre, these are very important information about the agency side and the law side. But Georgi asked you about the fans, and I asked you about the changing targets of the clubs and trying to fix some mistakes, as Nenad said. So, what is your general perspective in January transfers, and how do you take all this pressure and deal with it?
Yeah, gladly, I'm not in the responsible person to take the pressure directly, but I can imagine it's a lot of politics happening in a club. And when I'm speaking to the sporting director, for sure, he has to consider not just the sporting side of things, coming back to your point, that there's a lot of pressure from outside, from the board, from the fans, from the media. But again, when I have a look at the sporting perspective, I still believe we should be rational. We should focus on that, what we have discussed before. Don't rush into anything, because then we have to pay twice, financial and in sporting terms. So from a perspective of a scouting team, I don't feel any pressure, because I follow the instructions I receive from the sporting department, from the coach, from the sporting director. I have the mission to find a player who is fitting to the defined profile. And coming back to your point to the agents, what I can suggest to the agent is, also in a rushing winter transfer period, be very transparent with the information, but not overwhelming. I don't need 10 highlight videos. I don't need a full written page of information about the player. What you should suggest or propose is a link to the player, his financial terms regarding transfer fee and maybe salary expectation, plus your document that it shows, okay, I'm the agent, exclusive mandate. That's all. Any club does his own research. I won't believe your great chart you have created. As Tom already suggested, he can create great data for poor players and shitty graphics for top players. So I won't believe it, because I will do it on my own again. Send a summary of the player with the link, the financial aspects, and your mandatory, and that's all what we need, even if the time is rushing and we have pressure.
Nenad, of course, clubs, targets, and the positions and the needs always changing. You thought you were going to be on the middle of the table, but you can find yourself, your team in European tournaments. So, is it always uh, um, time to have rush transfer decisions, or how do we have to act with the changing perception of the team?
From the aspect, let's analyze. I cannot say about the big clubs because I'm coming from country with not so much successful things in the football European competition. But let's say from the analyze that I'm working in the men's football working group in EFC, former ECA, because we are working close to UEFA. There is a very big change in the last 2 years. I don't know if you mentioned that 2 of the games of the group stage will be played in January, especially the Champions League. These 2 games and UEFA Europa League. And somehow this determinate the things that happening because still 2 more games to be played, and you got some predications in percentage. There are a lot of let's say websites who make this data analyze how much is this percentage to proceed to the next round, but it really determines the transfer market from the aspect that the money who are coming from the UEFA competition, especially these 3 club competition formats that are using in the Champions League, Europa League, and Conference League. I think that they impact very much the January transfer window, but somehow I will not say again from the aspect of the big clubs. I will speak from the mid-size and from the small clubs that in this period of the year, you already know, do you have any chance to proceed and somehow to make this adjustment to the budget that you projected in the beginning of the season? Because outside of the regulatory of UEFA, Georgi knows better, maybe some of you, that UEFA, for example, your license for playing for Europe are determining regarding your financial information regarding the calendar year, which somehow you must be, let's say, very experienced working with these numbers, with these financial numbers regarding the budget. Because it's 2 impact. One for the season budget, but from another side, from the aspect of the regulation, we know about financial sustainability, and all these things should be done correctly on time, not to have impact. Sometimes this kind of decision that are coming, or even wrong projection, maybe impact the sporting aspect. Maybe the club will not go over the budget, maybe somehow make a mistake, and they should, let's say, have some restriction on the budget, and there is no space for any additional. And somehow it's giving to the scouts and to the sporting side of the club to find only free agents, for example, to only free players, or I don't know, any other strategies that they want to use it. But again, it's very determined by the especially by the money that they are giving and how much they want to, how they feel that they will be in the next round. Because let's say from the analyze, I always analyze the PSG last year. PSG was until the last round of the qualification in the group stage, they were struggling maybe not to be in the next phase after they did finish and won the Champions League. But again, the long-term strategy maybe give them the
PSG is not the best example you're going to give.
Yeah, okay, but
I made 2 transfers to PSG, and I can tell you I'm not impressed.
okay, but I'm not protecting the PSG, but speaking from the aspect that the results who are making on the pitch are somehow connected, but it cannot say determinate in very much the transfer politic for the winter. Sorry, for the winter transfer window. Yeah.
Actually, I wanted to give a couple of more advices to the agents in the room because
Maybe, Georgie, we can ask people if they have questions.
let me just wrap it up with two very important points. Let me wrap it up with 2 points which are really important, which a lot of agents probably don't know. But since we're on the topic of agents and agency work, it's agency, the main topic here. I like to tell you 2 ways you can easily lose your fee, because it's about money. Football is money. It's business, obviously. And more than 90% of football is behind the pitch. It's not on the pitch. You know that better than me. Well, first of all, conflict of interest. I would strongly advise you to avoid conflict of interest. But if you need to enter into a conflict where you represent 2 parties, like FIFA nowadays, in their regulations, allow due representation of the engaging club and the player by the same agent, which for me is totally inexplicable, because at certain point their interests align as long as we're talking about the transfer, because the player wants to move to the new club, the engaging club wants to take the player. So far so good. But then what's happening with the employment contract? And FIFA is saying that the agent in due representation, representing the same time the engaging entity and the player, is paid based on the employment contract, and that's where the inevitable conflict occurs, because from the one side, the club, some of you are representing clubs, they would like to reduce the player's salary. They want to offer him as less as possible. On the other side, you have the player who wants as much as possible. And imagine this agent makes his living on a fee from both sides on the same contract with two opposite interests. So that's a bullshit. But if you have to enter into a due representation, always seek the consent of the parties, okay? And seek it in writing. And if you get it orally on the phone, at least within the next 24 hours, do your best so that you can obtain it in a written form, okay? Avoid conflict of interest. There is a specific rule in Swiss law which rules out paying commission to an agent in conflict of interest. It's a specific rule in Swiss law, which I'm not going to quote for you, but just keep that in mind. And the second point, which is kind of a problem, and only a few know that, is that when you enter into an exclusive mandate or representation agreement with a player, you immediately, for you as an agent, arises the duty of care and loyalty, which means you must act. You can't just stay on your butt, sorry for my French, and wait for the fee to arrive in your pocket so that the player can do something. In fact, Swiss courts have many times ruled that if an agent has not acted in the best interest of his client and not acted at all, the sanction for such agent, even having an exclusive mandate, is no commission whatsoever. So that's why I'm telling you, keep the paper trail, keep your emails with clubs, WhatsApp messages, voice messages, so that you can prove that you are actually involved and you are doing your duty of care and loyalty to players. Thank you.
These are very, very important things. I heard lots of stories about these mistakes. So yeah, Andre, do you want to add anything about the winter transfer and the player agencies and the faults? Maybe you might.
Guys, last 8 minutes before the transfer period ends, and then you have to move to play for the teams you have picked, okay? Last 8 minutes.
Okay, don't worry. I'm not playing. You don't have
No,
to
put
fight.
them under pressure. Put them under pressure. Let them see what January means.
Andre, maybe you would like to share a story or anything to add?
I think
Do you want to switch teams? Do you want to play for Serbia?
my father's from Croatia, so I'm not allowed to play for Serbia, unfortunately.
I can always make a passport for you. Don't worry.
Let's see. Okay. Dean, thank you. Yeah. As I said, I think it's also relevant to act in the same manner in the summer as in the winter. Be transparent as possible for the club. Don't overwhelm with information. Don't send fake information. Be transparent because you're part of the deal. You also want that this deal happens. And if you're playing with a club, maybe one time it works out, but the second time the clubs remember your name and thinks, oh, this guy played me. I don't want to work with this guy anymore. So we are all together in one. We're all one part. So try to collaborate, not play against a team, play against a club. This is
But
what I'm.
Nenad has the recipe. If sometimes an agent proposes a wrong player, you told me at lunch, you can say to everyone, what's your recipe? How you remedy this issue? What you told me there was that you asked him to bring another player in lieu of the one that failed. That's a good example.
No, we spoke on the. Somehow I explained with my, let's say, 17 years experience in the football, working the transfers from the aspect of the club, FC Rabotnički, that somehow in some countries, when the player came, let's say Africans, we spoke about on the lunch, you bring some Africans, the first one is good, second one is good, and when the third one is not good, the owner especially says like, or the sport director, you trick me, you betrayed me, you are like, and I say, look, it's normal from these countries. We are not taking from Spain, we are not taking players from Italy, or even we spoke about Brazil. It's normal that the third one will be maybe you missed with the quality or it's not good enough for the club. Let's say it's a normal in some margin of mistake. But say to the agent, terminate the contract for me, convince the player to terminate the contract and bring me another one on his place that I will give you another chance just to see that on the long term we can have a mutual understanding and we together be successful. That was the reason how. But again, because I say in the beginning, I not trying to interfere the sporting aspect of the club and their work, but somehow with some, let's say, my view of the things, how to help them.
Any questions? Yes.
You have 5 minutes on the transfer period, okay?
Fantastic.
Run.
But this is a very complicated situation because a player can, maybe you have one player doesn't perform out of 3, right? For many reasons that are not relevant to the agent. Maybe adaptation, or it needs time. It needs many other things. That's Georgi. You explained to me the example of the Brazilian player that came unfit. He had time. The club was complaining, and right now he is the best player in the club. So why should I take the responsibility to kind of that approach is a little bit not fair on the agent because I brought you 2 excellent players. You didn't pay me extra. You paid me normal, right? If the third one doesn't perform for any reasons, why should you tell me, bring me another player so that we're still working with you? That's not fair. That's not fair because you should take time to try to resolve the problem of that third player to see the real reasons. Is it dependent to the agents? I don't think so, because the agent proves you already with 2 players performing. So I think it's not fair on the agents.
It's not about maybe you understand wrong. It's about that we cannot broke the relation with the agent just for one player that doesn't settle up. Yeah, keep working with it. But from the other side, I have a case in my club. The agent is calling the sporting director that he needed to adopt, and he already was married in Macedonia. He got a wife. Now for 2 years, I'm waiting him to adopt. From this kind of situation, I explained to you that somehow you should be reasonable, we should be reasonable. You understand? We cannot make a decision that you are not good agent, for example, because you bring the third one who is not. It's normal. You don't play for him.
Any more questions? Please. First, if you can please introduce yourself.
Branko Glovacevic from Zurich, Switzerland, agent. A question to Georgi. You mentioned in the mandate the clause of the jurisdiction, and I'm never sure what is more.
I mentioned what?
You mentioned the mandate and the clause of penalization and the clause of jurisdiction, also. Yes. And I'm never sure what is more protective for the player, to put CAS as jurisdiction, Swiss law, or the national ordinary law of the player where he's living?
Well, it's a simple answer. If you want your disputes to be resolved by people who have the expertise in sports law and to consider the specificity of sports, which is nowadays codified in the White Book of Sport of the European Union, so it's codified that sports is nothing like anything else. If you want people who are really aware of all the specificity, like I'm getting injured, I'm getting adjusted or not adjusted to a new environment, which is kind of part of the sports reality, you would choose CAS, because CAS has sports arbitrators who are, some of them are former athletes, some of them used to work in big associations, so they are more keen to accept your sports-related arguments. If you go to a civil court, you're one small fish in a big ocean, and nobody cares about your problems, and nobody's going to scrutinize what you're going to say as an argument. So I would definitely advise my clients to go to CAS. And as I told you, CAS, in the mind of people in football, is something big, something powerful, something strong, and it scares them to death. If they get a letter from CAS, we're in a public place, but I'm gonna tell you that they need to change their pants. Okay, that's what I'm gonna say. So this solves the problem. A letter from CAS solves the problem. 95% of my experience. I have so many agents that are bringing clubs and players to CAS, and we always settle. Almost always. Very rare case. I probably have one club, and I'll mention it, it's Apollon Limassol from Cyprus, that they are very stubborn and they want me to sue them all the time. All the rest, they immediately come and settle, particularly players.
Everybody, and
The transfer period is over, guys.
it's time for the football game.
No more switching of teams.
Thank you. Thank you very much. This was really powerful closing of our conference. And just stay for a second and greet one more time Georgi Gradev, Andre Martek, Nenad Monev, and wonderful Didam Dilan. You're welcome. And I would like just to close this conference in a proper way, if you don't mind. So, ladies and gentlemen, deal done, Serbia. 2025 is now officially closed, but the conversation did not end here. The relationships built, the idea exchanged, and the strategies discussed will continue to shape the months ahead. We look forward to welcoming you again, stronger, bigger, and even more ambitious at Deal Done Serbia 2026. Until then, thank you for being part of this first chapter. Thank you for making history with us. Safe travels and see you soon. And thank you very much. We hope you really enjoyed. Thank you. And just a small reminder, at 8, you can go down to reception. 8:15, the match is going to start. So it's Serbia versus World. I hope you're going to have a great time on that match. Sure. No more changing of associations. I'll drop you in the airport. What time is your flight?
8:30.
Sorry, you need just like a